Hey everybody, welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine, and today we've got a quite a busy show for you. Today we're going to be reacting to two particular former Proteas that have spoken. One is in the coaching setup at the Proteas, and one is a former legend and global icon of the game that have spoken about the Proteas ahead of the game against Australia in Lucknow. So we're going to start off the show by reacting to JP Dumini's press conference, obviously the batting coach of the Proteas. And he had a lot to say after that record breaking match against Sri Lanka. And he had some more things to say, of course, throughout this video, but I haven't watched the whole press conference yet because I want to react to it live with you guys. And then we're going to go into some comments from AB de Villiers, something that we can also look into and see what he had to say in a little column that he did for the ICC, and we're going to read it out on today's show to see what he thinks about the Proteas' campaign and what he thinks ahead of the match against Australia. But before we get going, before we get started, there's a couple of things that I'd like you guys to please do. First and foremost, you know what you have to do. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers now. So please subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, and share as well. It's also very important that you guys download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. This is the World Cup edition that we did for you guys recently. You get some amazing insight from the coaches and some players and some fans to give you an insight into what it's like to at the global showpiece event and how you prepare for it, of course, as well. The link is on the screen right now, as well as in the description. If you want to help support us and everything that we do here at Cricket Fanatics magazine, then you can become a patron today. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. And you can also go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your regular updates. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. I'm looking forward to discussing everything with you guys and reacting to all these comments that have been made recently before the Proteas' match against Australia. A very good evening and welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host Khalid, and this is the show where we talk about all the major talking points in South African cricket. And today we're going to be reacting to the press conference from JP Duminy, and we're also going to be reacting to AB de Villiers' comments about the Proteas. So we're going to start off with the JP Duminy press conference. We're going to go through it together. We're going to pause at certain spots and can give our insight into that. I'd like to hear your comments about what he had to say as well. So let's get straight into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to depict such a perfect day in many ways, but certainly very chuffed, in the position that I sit, and certainly reminded that it's certainly not about me, but about, as you mentioned there, the grit and determination that the guys showed. Something that we often reflect upon is, what are the conditions? What are our best options according to the conditions? And I think that was pretty much a perfect day, breaking records, opportunities to score 300s doesn't come around every day. So we'll certainly take that as a massive, massive confidence booster going into the rest of the tournament.
Thanks, Morgan. Stu, then Tiernus.
Thanks, Lucy. Hi, JB. So then to follow on that, pretty close to perfect as you say, but you guys do a deep dive into these things afterwards. What would you have told the batters, if any, as far as improvements might be concerned?
So often the sort of review and reflection is depicting certain moments in the game, and that's generally on an individual basis. So something also that we like to reflect on is the impact of partnerships. So one being individual, second being partnerships, but merely talking about options against whatever phase of the game that we find ourselves against the opposition. So that's really the reflection. And to be honest, there's not going to be a lot there. I thought our mindsets and our intent was spot on. For the most part, I think the options were really good. And yes, we'll have conversations here and there that we could do something different or add something to a particular partnership. But outside of that, there's not much to reflect on other than you want to really affirm the things that we did well. I guess the thing that we have to acknowledge, in a tournament such as this, is that we're going to be faced with different conditions pretty much every game. So as much as we take learnings, it's leading into a game. What are some of the things that we feel that we need to focus on in terms of our clear understanding of options that we need to take? So that's certainly been our reflection, and the feedback has been really positive.
So one thing that we can talk about and that I think that needs to be taken into consideration is that Australia's bowling attack is a lot better than Sri Lanka's. That's something that we need to take into consideration. But not only that, it's also the fact that they have senior players that have experience that can are a lot more consistent. The thing about the Sri Lanka was, and the thing that I think we capitalized well on, is that they had a very young bowling attack. They might not have the same consistency and experience as the likes of Australia. So they are going to be testing our batters a lot better, I think, and more consistently um, from the get go. Now, we're not 100% sure what Lucknow is going to offer, but just from my observation of everything and what I've seen on Cricinfo by looking through the stats, medium paces and spinners seem to be what um, they have been the most threatening at the ground, particularly in ODIs. Okay, yes, there's only been 4 ODIs at the ground: Afghanistan and West Indies series, and then South Africa's match against India, which South Africa won. And it is the medium paces and the spinners that did well. I mean, I think the majority of the top 10 of those of the best innings per match or best bowling figures per in a match are all medium paces and spinners. And Lungingiri is part of that top 5. So we need to maybe take some um, confidence from that into the match. It hasn't, in all of the 4 of those matches, it wasn't a very high scoring games. So South Africa need to take in that into consideration, that you're obviously going to face a much better bowling attack that is going to be more consistent, and they're going to be um, testing the Proteas from the get go a lot more consistently throughout the match.
Thanks, Stu. Tianas?
Hi JP.
Hey,
I know
Tennis.
it's not your call, it's not your division, but have you guys also done a reflection on the bowling, conceding more than 300s? I know all the guys who've spoken since said it was just such good batting conditions that they're not too worried. But are there some things that you want to change for the Aussie game?
So I think the positive out of particularly that bowling performance is there was really clear game plans and tactics. All right. So often the reflection is going to be what was the execution of that, and I think if we consistently operating and asking questions around the execution, that is where with the space that is the space that we want to live in, and I think for the most part we have. So yes, there's been a good reflection around that, and particularly around conversations with Eric. But what I appreciate is that we're focusing a lot on execution. We're finally in a space, I believe, where the thinking is in the right direction and the tactics are really good. And that bodes us well going forward, because when we're operating in that space, that comes down to a preparation, a skill execution, which is, as a cricketer, if you're operating in that space predominantly, I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, so there is a lot of things that I think we need to take into consideration over there. When it comes to the bowling attack, there is work to do. Definitely work to do there, because when it comes to consistency, that's the main key for me, and I think that's they need to be a little bit more consistent with keeping decent lines and good lengths and probing the opposition batters a lot more. Now you're playing against a much better batting attack over here in Australia, and we don't know how the wicket is going to play up. We don't know which type of soil they're going to be using. Apparently, that ground has black soil as well as red soil. They have on different wickets, so it's a bit of an interesting one because it's going to depend which strip they play on. So that's just from what I've heard. um, Lawrence saying I can see SA either go in with two spinners or bring Andile in, but the Markram will have to get in overs. Might not be the worst idea to play Andile on the surface. I'm leaning towards two spinners. Still, I'm also leaning towards two spinners with regards to the record at this ground, where I said medium paces and spinners seem to have taken wickets. And I know it's only been a very small sample size with only 4 ODIs to look at. We might have to also go into the T20s to actually check that too. But generally speaking, I think Lucknow is going to be a slower wicket. So having those type of bowlers like Andile in your team to be able to utilize might be a good thing. Also, having a deeper batting lineup if someone doesn't perform this time around, because like we had 300s in the last game. It's very seldom that there's a follow up and then all the batters bat exactly the same again and put out on a performance. We might have one of them do it again. We might have none of them do it again. Then we need Timba to stand up. Then we need David to stand up, Heinrich to stand up in this particular match. And then you need your tail also to put in a powerful display as well. So maybe two all rounders might be a good idea with regards to this. Australia will definitely come harder after they lost. Good luck, South Africa. That is 100% true.
Thanks, Tunis. Talford, then Zahir.
Thanks, Lucy. How's it, JP?
Husband.
Hi. You played the Australians not, just the other day, but these are very different conditions, and they're a stronger team, I think it's fair to say, than the team you faced in South Africa. So how does that change your approach going into this game?
It certainly wouldn't change our approach. I think we'd like to pride ourselves on preparation and process. So yes, there's confidence coming out of a series that we were 2-0 down and winning 3-2. And for the most part, a lot of those players were part of that series. But yes, there are certain threats that are going to be posed. One against these conditions, and obviously one or two players that didn't play in that series. So we'll certainly look at that. But ultimately, it's about a process, right? So if our preparation is around certain processes, we're not going to deter from that. And that sort of hones in on what are we going to be focusing on. So from that perspective, I can't see a lot changing other than just kind of focusing on that process for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to know a little bit more about what that process is. It would have been nice if you fleshed that out a little bit more, because we know the threats. Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark, they are two threats. Steve Smith as well coming into the lineup. How are we going to get him out? Those are all things that we need to take a look at as well. Whether it's going to swing or not, that will obviously determine also how we're going to approach it, because South Africa in the past in the batting hasn't necessarily always been very consistent or very good against the swing bowlers. So another good performance from our top order will set up the game, and I think that's very important. We need that top three to set a platform for the rest, because I don't really see their spinners as major threats for the likes of Heinrich Klaasen and the likes of David Miller, who are very good against spin. So yeah, let's see. I heard the commentators talking a lot about today during the England Bangladesh game and the Pakistan Sri Lanka game. A lot of them mentioned the fact that Australia only taking one spinner, and that's maybe making them consider who will be in the top four at the end of this tournament. So that is something to look into. But South Africa needs to pick the pick the times correctly on when they put the pressure on, and it's all about reading the conditions. Lauren's saying, of course, and I looked at the weather as well. It was also warm conditions on Thursday, 35 degrees predicted, and that will also determine how the surface will play as well, and how the ball will react on that pitch, and etc. So that will determine a lot of things. Once again, in India, I think the toss will play a big role, and I think that what we do is going to be very, very important. But generally speaking, and Azim is 100% right here, we need our bowling to be a little bit more economical. You're playing against a team that can really take the game away from you.
Thanks, Telford. So here.
As James, James, there was a list of scores that came up after the game in Delhi, right? South Africa 400, 400, the highest 400s, and two of them were in 2015. But in between those games, South Africa, the batting unit failed the very next game, 200, 200. How do you maintain that intensity, that same, that it doesn't go into a dip and then a high and a dip and a high in the tournament as long as this, particularly facing Australia next time?
Well, firstly, let me say thank you for acknowledging the negatives, Zaire. Yeah, I can trust you to do that, so thank you.
Sure.
I think first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that this is a different batting group, and there's been a trend and a pattern with this group of real consistency. So to be honest, as a batting coach, I sit here not worried about the potential of a dip after a high. I think there's a real hunger and a determination within this group to really lead, particularly around the batting group. And it doesn't deter a lot from what I said earlier, in the previous question, was around process. And, it's certainly been drilled into these guys around really focusing on world-class preparation and process. And if we focus on that, we give ourselves the best chance, right? I said earlier as well about if we have a good understanding and assessment of conditions, we understand our options, and similarly to bowlers, if we're operating within that execution space, if that is our consistent review, then I believe we are operating in a high performance space, a world-class space. And whatever the result comes of that has to be. So I'm pretty chuffed with having not to deal with those kind of things, because I don't think there's any player in that top six that doesn't have that hunger and desire, irrespective of what their particular personal milestones were or as a team.
That's the important thing over there, I think. They must consistently trust. Okay, that's where I think he's right about processes. It's being able to focus on their game, one game at a time, focus on the conditions that are ahead of you, and then adapting your game accordingly. And I think these players are confident enough and capable enough to be able to do so. The technical ability is very high, and I think they are able to do so. What I do hope happens, and I hope it plays out this way. But Pavuma didn't score in last game, so generally speaking, when the pressure's on Pavuma, he steps up. So I'm hoping that he can really perform well against the Aussies and really show them, show the world that this World Cup that he means business as the captain and the leader of this team. If he gets a good result and they end up winning the game, I think the tails are going to be up of everybody. And if our bowlers' tails are up and they're confident after another victory, I think they're going to be deadly. Particularly KJ Rabada, I think he will feed off that, and you'll step up and want to become and want to be the main guy in this in this bowling unit. So I think Temba needs to score good. I think KG needs to come to the party, but I think Lungi will be key and the two spinners. And I think we should go with two spinners in this particular match.
Thanks, Zahir. Hines?
Hi, JP. Hope you're well. JP, obviously, I mean, a very meaningful achievement for that trio in Delhi. I mean, it was their maiden World Cup centuries and stuff. But it was noticeable how emotional all three of them were. But probably not just because of the achievement, but because of the respective journeys of some of them. Like a Quiddy finally after three tournaments, getting there actually. And it's his last ODI assignment. Rassi, you had to perhaps dispel a little bit of doubts and stuff. Just how chuffed were you for them actually reaching those achievements? Not just in terms of reaching a milestone in World Cups, but also just like I always want to say, like proving some of the doubters wrong, or even signing off on a good note, for example.
Yeah, it's an interesting point made, and having played with pretty much all of the guys you mentioned, I know for a fact that whatever their driver is, there's a strong determination to put up that performance to give the team the best opportunity. And yes, there will be personal things that they'd like to achieve, but certainly the driver for us is putting the team first and what does the team need. And, if there are personal achievements and milestones that come with that, then that's great. But we certainly want to drive that culture, that behavior, that language, that this puts the team in the best position to win the game. And that's the language we want to drive. And I'm certainly very chuffed for the fact that these guys have put in these big performances early on in the tournament, which bodes well for what's to come. And believe me, we're gonna come up against moments in this tournament where we're gonna face some really big challenges. And the fact that we've gone through some real confident boosters, I think is going to give us a great opportunity to get through those difficult times. The ability to lean on your partner in those difficult moments and have clear understanding of the language of what we're talking about. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the partnership. How does it impact the game? And, together, can we give ourselves the best chance to win the game?
I agree with the partnership thing 100% because I think that good partnerships are always very important to setting up a good total and a good platform, and they need to play together. Um, so I'm hoping that happens. That they put on a good performance and they perform well as partners, and because that will obviously takes the pressure off. They take the pressure off each other if they're sitting together good partnerships. Lauren saying we need a good Bavuma knock against Australia. Most of, or if not all his ODI runs performances has been in SA, not abroad. So we need him to get a score to set him up for the rest of the tournament. Lubabalo says Temba has played just 6 ODIs away from home though, which is also true. So that is why most of his runs have come from SA, says Lubabalo. Yeah, and Temba is such an important part of this batting unit. Integral part, best batter that we've had since the 2015 World Cup with regards to the stats. So he's so important, and when he does well, the rest of the team really performs well. But there's also been times when the rest of the team batting lineup doesn't perform and Temba steps up. So I think this is a type of match that's meant for Temba to really make a statement for the rest of the tournament. It takes a lot of pressure off him, and he can go into the rest of the matches playing with a freedom. But it will be good for him to get a good game under his belt. There's a positive from the wicket that he lost because he looked really good against Sri Lanka in the first couple of balls that he faced, and then he got a very good delivery that swung into his pads. So he's going to face that swing again, and I hope that he maybe has a plan and he's spoken to JP and the coaches about what the plans he's going to have when it comes to facing those swing bowlers and facing like the likes of Hazelwood and Stark if they both play up front. So because they get a lot of movement, and I'm hoping that this wicket isn't I hope these conditions aren't necessarily swinger friendly because then it plays into South Africa's hands, in my opinion.
Irrespective of what their particular personal milestones were or as a team.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Sahir. Hines?
Sorry, guys. Let's just move on. I made a mistake.
I know for a fact that if there are personal achievements and milestones that come with that, then that's great. But we certainly want to drive that culture, that behavior, that language, that this puts the team in the best position to win the game. And that's the language we want to drive. And I'm certainly very chuffed for the fact that these guys have put in these big performances early on in the tournament.
Yeah, we've heard that. Sorry,
Face
guys.
some really big challenges, and the fact that we've gone through some real confident boosters, I think is going to give us a great opportunity to get through those difficult times. The ability to lead ourselves the best chance to win the game.
Okay, let's. Sorry, guys. Made a
Thanks,
mistake.
Hines. We're going to take the last couple of questions with follow-ups from Sahir and then Tiernas.
Zahir, are you there?
Tina's first, but I'll go. It's fine. On a more positive note, part of
Thank you, Zahir, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Carry on.
on maintain the one key to beating Australia is maintaining the pressure. They've obviously they've gone down again. You guys have the opportunity to inflict a lot to put more pressure on them. Just what are you expecting? How hard are you expecting them to come at you, and how do you confront that? That what Australia brings on Thursday.
Well, having had personal experiences against them when their backs are against the wall, they're going to come out firing. Knowing their personality, it doesn't take them away from their style of play. They're going to come harder. So what is our response to that? Our response to that is really trying to stay in our bubble of process. And I know I'm sounding like a stuck record here, but that's certainly been our language. It's not necessarily fighting fire with fire. It was, what is the identity of the South African team? We're a resilient country. We stick together in tough times. So whatever is going to be thrown at us, we got to look each other in the eye and say, I'm going to do this for my mate. I'm going to do it for the guy on the other side, and understand the how. Often what gives us that sort of muddled feeling is not understanding the how of what's in front of us. So that's been a consistent sort of conversation for us, as we understand the what needs to be done, but now the conversation needs to lead to what's the how, particularly in the middle. So when we're under pressure, what is our next move? And we've got to be very intentional about that. And ultimately, if we think about where we've gone wrong in past, including myself, is when we're under pressure, we haven't made good decisions. So can we be in a better position to make sound decisions under pressure? That's ultimately going to give us the best chance, not only to beat Australia in a World Cup match, but any team that we come up against.
That's very true.
Thanks, Zahir.
BMT, guys.
Then wrap up with Heinz.
Thanks, Lucy. JP, you've been speaking a lot about the process and you guys sticking in your bubble. But I was just wondering if I could maybe get a comment from you about the specific threats of a Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, that sort of base bowling trio.
Yeah, great point. So that's certainly been a discussion already.
I hope so.
So again, conditions are going to dictate that. So it's not just the out and out, this is going to be the threat.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, what are the conditions, right? So conditions are in some ways separate from the opposition. So it's really just assessing that. Now, what are they giving? Is the ball going to be swinging? How does that influence the options that we have?
Yep, I said that earlier.
What's the bounce and carry like? Is there some lateral movement? These are the things that we're going to have to assess early, and ultimately that is going to influence the options we take. And that, as I said, is the language that we're speaking. But in that space is not a survival mode. It's still having a clear understanding of how do I assert pressure with all the information that is in front of me. And if we can make those decisions quicker and sharper, and not individually but together, and that's where the communication comes in together as a partnership, I think we give ourselves the best chance. So if each one of them would pose different threats, but it's the communication, it's the understanding of our options, and ultimately we're going to judge ourselves on our execution, which we're going to have to wait and see for after the game.
Yeah, so for me, I like what he said there, because those meetings in the middle between the two batters it shouldn't just be about small talk. It should be about strategizing and an opportunity to talk about what they just faced. Now, it's not about survival, no, but they going to have to assess quickly whether that ball is swinging or not early on. And the only way they're going to know that is when they face that first delivery from Stark. Now, Stark is deadly and very accurate from the get-go. So you must be able to at least survive that first ball and not get a duck or golden duck. So it's about assessing that and then facing and then changing what you need to change accordingly to what's happening in front of you. bat with no fear, bat with confidence, trust your beliefs, and have, like Wakas George says there, situational awareness, making sure that you understand what is in front of you and how you're going to counter that. They need to come together, the batters, talk to each other, and have and try to help each other out. It's not just about the individual anymore. It's about being able to perform as a pair. And then we'll have more opportunity, or we'll have more occasions where we have 300s in a game, and we'll have big scores, etc. If the batting unit starts thinking about each other as well, and not only on themselves.
Thanks. And then lastly, Heinz.
Thanks, Lucy. JP, just in terms of Marco, he obviously has a very important role to play in that batting lineup as a number seven. But I'm just wondering, what type of conversations are you having with him? Particularly with your reference to you might actually get some tougher conditions somewhere along the tournament. Is it a case of like telling him to just keep on being the solid hitter that he has been, for the past few weeks? Or have you actually sort of like made a bit of a contingency that he might have to come into a situation at some stage like he had in Bloemfontein, where he almost had to consolidate with like 20 overs left still and stuff? Or is that the type of conversation you don't try to put on the forefront because you actually want to encourage the top six to take most of the responsibility?
Yeah, in a perfect world, you'd want the top six to take most of the responsibility, but we could find ourselves in a situation where Marco comes in with quite a few overs still left in the game where he needs to make an impact. So he understands that. We've had conversations around that, and he hasn't, he's still young in his career, so he hasn't had many opportunities with that to truly understand what that looks like for him. So I think in many ways it's still a opportunity for him to explore and discover certain things about his game. But that's the beauty. So what we don't want to do as a coaching staff is to try and overcoach those moments. We have to allow the freedom and opportunity for him to explore that and discover himself in those
Wow,
moments.
that's brilliant.
The thing that we really want to encourage, though, is that we don't want him to shrink. We don't want him to go into his box in just that survival mode. And we've certainly, in past times, as a South African team and a South African batting lineup, we found ourselves there. We want him to
Accountability,
express
JP,
himself,
well
back
done.
his options, have clear understanding according to the conditions. What are my options here? How am I going to score as opposed to how am I going to survive? So language is important, and I keep reiterating that. But he is a naturally gifted flair player, so you don't want to take that away. It's just you want to hone in a clear understanding of how do I score, not about how do I survive. And I'm excited to see him in those moments, because that's really gonna show the true class and ability of a player with his quality, which I'm pretty excited by.
That's brilliant. I like that a lot, because there's definitely been conversations around that. And based on JP's past and the players that he played with before, we've seen ourselves go into cocoons. And they need to allow him to be the free flowing player that he is. Vivek says, with 6 specialist batsmen, the only issue might become when the team beat 250 for 3 in 10 overs. Thank you, JP. Too many a time in the past, we wanted to play the game from a dressing room. No overcoaching, and leave it to the guys in the park to make the decisions. Brilliant. I think that was a very good press conference. I think it gave us a lot of insight. Azim says we can maybe take advantage of Australian batsmen if they bat too aggressive at the wrong times, 100%. And that's where the guys like Lungi with the slower change ups, etc., and off the seam movement, cutters, etc., will come into play to force Australia um, to make mistakes when they're trying to be too aggressive and attacking. South Africa, I like the way we bat. I like the approach, and I like that we take our time, and we also we bat according to the situation, and I think that is important as well. Luke asks, do you think our batsmen can score 350 plus against India's spinners? That's the $1 million question. Might not need to. If it's spinning conditions, um, then it might be on a lower scoring ground. I think that we've had a hell of a lot of experience over the last 3 years against India's spinners, the current spinners that they have available. I think we should be able to be equipped to take them on. Lucknow, we beat them, India, the last game that we played, that the last game that was played at Lucknow in 2022. So I hope that they have taken from what they've learned from playing against them. There is no excuse now. I remember 3 years ago, I think it was 3, 4 years ago, um, might have been longer than that, maybe 5 years ago. The 20 when we played India here, I think we had 6 ODIs against them, and the excuse came from the batting coach at the time, Dale Benkenstein, saying that they didn't have experience playing against the likes of Chahal and Kuldeep, and they weren't very familiar with him, and that's why they've suffered so badly against them. I think there was 32 wickets taken between the two spinners in that ODI series, which was crazy. And there was a lot of excuses saying that they couldn't really replicate it in the nets the way those players bowl. They have unique bowling styles, etc. And they tried their best to mimic it, but they couldn't. And there was a lot of excuses about that, about the preparation. Now there's no excuse. They've played them enough times to know. So especially this top six has played against them enough times to know, including Aiden Markram. And I'm hoping Aiden can really take advantage of that because he really went through a suffering period against these spinners. And he was the captain at the time in the absence of Faf du Plessis. So we're hoping that he will be able to really take advantage of that and just continue the momentum that he started. Vivek, I hope SA don't miss Andrik much. Is Andrik traveling as a result? Nope, Andrik's not. There's no reserve players that traveled with. Must win game against Australia in the World Cup semi, though tough competition would be tough. I think Australia showed you don't need a 350 score against India, as the wicket will most probably turn square. Not saying 200 will do, but 280, 300. And yeah, that's what I was saying a little bit earlier on as well. Okay, so that was JP Duminy's press conference. Really enjoyed it, I must say. The first half was a little bit repetitive, but towards the end, it started getting a little bit more juicy. Let's go to AB de Villiers' comments and what he had to say in a column on the ICC, um, that the ICC supplied to us. AB de Villiers going under the radar suits Proteas that are free of baggage, says AB de Villiers. Okay, so I'm going to read this out to you. It's in AB de Villiers' words, so he's talking from the first person. South Africa's total against Sri Lanka was the highest in ICC Men's Cricket World Cup history and caused the cricketing world to sit up and take notice, but they will need a few more centuries before people back home start believing the Proteas can win the first World Cup. After all, they have seen it all too many times before. A Proteas side looking like real contenders and then falling before the final. It's largely due to you guys, AB. Despite a stunning start to the campaign, expectations amongst fans remain low and the team's good form has gone under the radar. But that is exactly what makes me so excited about South Africa's chances in India. I've played in previous teams that had more superstars in its ranks, but struggled to deal with the pressure that came with that. For the current generation, it is quite the opposite. There are few established figures, but lots of players ready to put their stamp on the world stage, free of the baggage from previous failures. We heard this before because in 2019, guys, we know that they spoke about no baggage. That was like the main thing that came out of all the press conferences. No baggage. We're coming with no baggage from the previous tournaments and the previous heartaches. That was the whole 2019 narrative, and then yet they completely fell apart on that in that World Cup. So I hope, yeah, that this is obviously a much better start than we had last time out. Last time we lost three games on the bounce. At least we got off to a record-breaking win in the first match. It will give us a lot of confidence. Aiden Markram's 49-ball century showed just how devastating he can be on attack, but he also has the temperament and ability to build an innings, while Heinrich Klaasen is in the form of his life. Alongside Rassie van der Dussen, Temba Bavuma, David Miller, and Quentin de Kock, it is surely one of the most dangerous top sixes in the competition, if not the best on current form, thanks to a perfect balance of control and firepower. I've always said that. I said this is one of the best um, batting lineups when it comes to a unit. There is balance. It's the most balanced batting attack I've seen in a very long time. They're all playing in a way that reminds me of the 2015 World Cup when we reached the semi-finals before narrowly losing to New Zealand in what was a harsh reminder of the fine margins in international cricket. We played with absolute freedom every single game, and I remember that semi-final really feeling like we played our dream game with a few drop catches ultimately costing us. But that last over also cost us. It was part of a new culture that I know is still in place and will be evident against Australia on Thursday in what will be a very tough battle. The Australian bowling attack will ask plenty of questions, but I'm confident we can deal with it. It is with the ball that I believe South Africa can win the game. The Aussies will be low on confidence after defeat to India, but a wounded Australia team is very dangerous. Spot on. It will be crucial to pick up some early wickets to keep the pressure on, something we have not done too well recently. That's very important. We need to strike up front, take early wickets, get those guys that have that grit and determination out the team quickly. Um, allow to put. We should allow ourselves to put pressure on that bottom order, middle order, as much pressure as possible. Try to get some early wickets. It's very important that we do so. It might sound obvious, but Steve Smith's wicket will be the most important. He holds everything together for Australia, and if we can get him out early, I'm confident we can get the job done. There's a lot of other guys that are very dangerous in that team too. All the focus has been on the batters, but this is a huge test for the bowling attack if South Africa want to be seen as real contenders, especially without Anil Nokia. No one knows how to get it done at World Cups like Australia. The loss of Nokia to injury is a real blow and means there is extra pressure on Kagiso Rabada to lead the attack. He's saying all the things that we've been saying, guys. I spoke to him last week and he's determined to step up to the plate and lead by example as one of the best bowlers in the world. I have South Africa as slight favourites, and Proteas' victory would certainly persuade people at home that the Proteas can become champions. But it is a long tournament with plenty of cricket still to be played, regardless of the outcome. The longer we can fly under the radar, the better. Although, as those are often the tournaments you win. Suddenly, you get to a semi-final, and it is a knockout cricket where anything can happen. I have a funny feeling this might just be the year. I just hope those fine margins are on our side this time. So that's what AB de Villiers had to say. Um, and yeah, I think it's pretty much straightforward, exactly what we all been saying leading up to this tournament. Bibek saying must win game against Australia, though competition would be there. Be there. I feel India, New Zealand, South Africa, and England, Australia would be the four teams in the semi. Beat Australia convincingly, and most of the talk will turn to South Africa as one of the favourites, no doubt. However, the one thing we should not do is underestimate Australia in the World Cup. They're a different animal in ICC events. Did not have a coach in 2019, says Luvavalo. Yeah, don't even want to think about 2019. It was horrible. Khalid, do you know ABD has a YouTube channel? Yeah, I know he has a YouTube channel. Pretty unfair to other YouTube creators because everybody is world famous. So we're hoping that what happens is we stay focused, and I mean we've seen New Zealand do it quite a few times, go under the radar, and then suddenly they find themselves in the semi-final, or a final. So I'm hoping that South Africa's in that bracket this time around, and we can go on to make a final. It would be amazing if we can make a final at least, and then whatever happens, happens. So let's see what happens with regards to that. Let's see, because I think this unit, there's a togetherness here that I really enjoy. I don't think there's anybody in this unit that wants to be the main guy. That's what I like about this team as well. They take responsibility because they want the team to win rather than playing for themselves. So that is something that I think is interesting. That I think we should be mentioned. Lawrence is off the topic a bit, Khalid, but apparently Friday is the deadline for the SA government to amend our anti-doping program to new regulations WADA had put out. Okay, let me see. WIDA. Let's see what it says. Let's read out this article quickly for you guys. I found one on EWN. Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa has said the looming sanctions from the World Anti-Doping Agency will not have any impact on South African sporting team participation at various international competitions currently. The agency's compliance review committee said South Africa is no longer compliant with the Water Code. It added that the laws around doping must be updated by the end of this week. If South Africa fails to comply, the country runs the risk of its national teams playing at international level without the country's flag displayed. Minister Kodwa gave an update on Tuesday about sanctions being taken by the government to ensure compliance with the 2021 code. South Africa is running out of time to comply with the code. This could be preventing our sports teams from having our flag flying on display at the Rugby and Cricket World Cups currently underway in France and India, respectively. South African Institute for the Drugs Free Sports CEO Khalid said they'll be filing an appeal with a doping agency on Tuesday to dispute the non-compliance declaration. Minister Kodwa said they're working tirelessly to ensure compliance. I made a special request to the leader of the government business for the bill to be fast tracked through a preliminary system, said Kodwa. Kodwa added that they have until May next year to remedy the situation. So that's the update on that. So yeah. Yeah, laugh dicks. It's like a laugh. Anyway, guys, that's the update for today. And I think I covered everything with regards to that. I'm trying to get some interviews also lined up, but tomorrow we will do a preview for the Aussie game, and discuss that. And obviously, then the game is on Thursday, and we're all going to be rallying behind the Proteas, hopefully for a win. And I'm excited to see what happens. So tomorrow's the preview, guys. So stay tuned. Join for that. We did an interview yesterday with Mikhail Prince. Sorry, I don't know why I went blank there. Yeah, so go watch that particular interview. There were some nice insights over there to understanding what our youngsters go through in the game, and when you are not at one of the top schools from the get-go, how you can still make it as a professional cricketer in South Africa. Wakas, I am in contact with David Bedingham. We're trying to come up with a time that suits him. At the moment, because he's back in South Africa, he obviously has a lot of obligations to people in his life that are from Cape Town. So I want to give him his space to be able to do so as well. But I am in contact with him with regards to when we can do an interview. I've also spoken to Patrick Kruger for next week. So we are going to get some interesting interviews over the next couple of days. But all you guys here, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Tomorrow we'll be reacting as well to Quinton de Kock's press conference if it comes out in the time that we need it. And we'll do that on the preview show as well. I hope it's not boring, but we'll try our best to do so. And yeah, so we'll do a preview tomorrow. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, and share. Download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. You can also support us by becoming a Patreon today. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. That's to keep us getting all these interviews. That's to keep us getting these shows live for you guys every single day. We need your help on the Patreon, guys. So please get involved there. Also go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your regular updates. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow with another preview show. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace out.